The lights of the America's Got Talent stage were blinding, but for 13-year-old Miguel Santos from the Philippines, they felt like home. He stood quietly at the center, gripping his old wooden guitar as the audience murmured in curiosity. The boy looked nervous but determined, his eyes fixed on Simon Cowell, who gave him a curious half-smile. "What's your name, and where are you from?" Simon asked. Miguel's soft accent broke through the silence as he answered, "My name is Miguel, and I'm from the Philippines." The crowd cheered, already charmed by his modest tone. When asked what he'd be performing, he said shyly, "I'll be singing Hotel California by the Eagles. It was my dad's favorite song." That last line changed the air in the room. The judges leaned forward, sensing the weight behind his choice. Miguel took a deep breath, strummed his guitar, and began to sing. The first note came out pure and deep, surprising everyone. His young voice carried a tone of maturity that felt older than his age. The haunting chords of Hotel California echoed through the theater, but Miguel didn't just sing, he told a story. His voice carried the soul of his father, the love of his family, and the dream of every Filipino who ever dared to step onto an American stage. People in the audience began recording, phones lighting up like stars. When he reached the chorus, his voice swelled, powerful and emotional, making the crowd cheer mid-performance. Simon didn't blink once, he sat still, completely drawn in. By the time Miguel sang the final line, the entire auditorium had fallen into silence so thick you could hear his last breath fade into the air. Then suddenly, the room exploded with applause. People were on their feet. Heidi covered her mouth, Sophia clapped proudly, and Howie gave a standing ovation. Simon leaned into his mic and said softly, "That was magic." Miguel's eyes watered, unsure if this was real. Backstage, his mother cried as golden confetti didn't fall yet, but something in everyone's hearts told them it would soon. His story had only begun, and everyone knew the boy with the guitar from the Philippines was about to change everything. Behind the curtains, producers asked Miguel to share more about his journey. His story melted hearts across the world. Miguel grew up in a small village outside Cebu, where his father was a local musician who played old classics at weddings and town festivals. Miguel learned to play guitar sitting beside him on quiet nights, listening to Hotel California on repeat. When his father fell ill and passed away, Miguel made a promise that one day, he would sing their song on a stage where the world could hear. Music became his way to keep his father's memory alive. His mother worked long hours in a bakery to help him chase that dream, and when they finally made it to America for auditions, it felt like destiny. The morning after his audition aired, social media exploded. Millions watched the clip of the shy Filipino boy with the angelic voice. Fans across the world called him the soul of AGT. The video trended globally, with people writing comments like, "He made me cry without even trying." Miguel, however, remained humble. "I just sing from my heart," he said during interviews. "I sing for my dad." The judges were equally touched. Heidi praised him for his emotional honesty. Sophia said his performance reminded her of why she joined the show, and how he called him a gift. But it was Simon's words that stayed with him the most. After the cameras stopped rolling, Simon quietly told Miguel backstage, "You didn't just perform, you felt every word. Your dad would be proud." Miguel smiled shyly, clutching his guitar tighter. That night, he sat in his small hotel room with his mother, watching the replay on TV. They didn't speak much, they didn't have to. When Simon said, "That was magic," Miguel whispered softly, "Did you hear that, Dad?" It was the start of a new chapter, one that would lead him from a small town in the Philippines to the world's biggest stage, where dreams, memories, and music would blend into one unforgettable journey. When Miguel arrived in Hollywood Week, he felt the pressure heavier than ever. The flashing cameras, the endless rehearsals, and the sea of talented performers made him realize how far he was from his small hometown in Cebu. The air buzzed with nerves and excitement, but Miguel stayed quiet, clutching his guitar like a lifeline. His name was already famous after the viral audition, and expectations were sky high. The producers told him he needed a new song, something that showed his emotional range and growth since his first performance. After nights of thinking, he chose "Tears in Heaven" by Eric Clapton, a song that, like his own story, was born from loss and love. During practice, Miguel struggled. Each time he reached the chorus, his voice cracked. His father's memory flooded back, making it almost impossible to continue. His mother hugged him gently and whispered, "You sing because he taught you how. You sing for both of you." Those words gave him strength. When the moment came, the audience was silent. Miguel stepped into the spotlight, his small frame dwarfed by the grand stage. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to sing. The first line came out soft and trembling, but it carried weight that silenced every whisper in the theater. As the music flowed, he let his pain turn into beauty. Each lyric sounded like a prayer, and each chord echoed like a heartbeat. People began to cry quietly in the audience. Even the judges, who had seen thousands of performances, seemed overwhelmed. Howie wiped his eyes, Heidi placed a hand on her chest, and Simon stared intensely, as if watching something sacred unfold. When Miguel finished, the last note hung in the air, fragile and perfect. The audience erupted into applause that went on for minutes. Simon stood first, clapping slowly before saying, "That wasn't just singing, that was healing." Miguel smiled through his tears, whispering a soft thank you. Backstage, his mother ran to hug him, and together they cried in relief and pride. The world began to see that this boy wasn't just a singer, he was a storyteller who could touch souls with his voice. By the time the next round came, Miguel was becoming a fan favorite. People from all over the world posted videos of their kids singing his version of Hotel California. But the show had another surprise waiting. AGT producers decided to pair him with another young contestant, a 14-year-old girl from the US named Emily. She was confident, bold, and known for her powerhouse voice. At first, Miguel felt shy around her, speaking softly while she joked to break the tension. They were given "Let It Be" by the Beatles for their duet, a song about hope, peace, and acceptance. Rehearsals were awkward at first. Miguel's gentle style clashed with Emily's strength. But as they practiced, they started blending, finding harmony in their differences. They shared stories about their families and dreams. Emily told him her father was in the military, and she barely saw him. Miguel smiled and said softly, "Then we both sing for our dads." From that moment, their connection deepened, and the music between them transformed. On performance night, the crowd cheered wildly as they walked on stage together. The lights dimmed, and the piano began. Emily started strong, her voice powerful and clear, but when Miguel joined, something magical happened. His soft, emotional tone wrapped around hers perfectly, like two worlds colliding in harmony. The crowd listened in silence, spellbound by the beauty of the duet. Their voices rose together on the final chorus, filling the room with emotion. When the song ended, the entire audience stood. Heidi said, "That was like watching two angels sing." Sophia added, "This is the beauty of music, it connects hearts from different places." Simon leaned in, his voice emotional as he said, "You two just reminded us why this show exists." Afterward, Miguel hugged Emily tightly backstage, both crying tears of joy. Though only one could move on, they both knew something special had happened. When Simon announced Miguel's name as the one advancing, Emily smiled and clapped for him. Miguel immediately turned and pointed at her, saying, "This is our moment." It showed his pure heart and humility, something fans around the world loved him for. The duet went viral online, symbolizing unity beyond culture and borders. That night, as Miguel sat with his mother again, he whispered, "Maybe music really does bring people together." The world had seen his gift, but now, they saw his heart too, a heart big enough to make everyone believe in the power of love, loss, and music all over again. The night of the semifinals was unlike anything Miguel had ever experienced. The AGT stage looked bigger, brighter, and more intimidating than ever. The crowd was enormous, and millions were watching live from around the world. Backstage, Miguel sat quietly with his guitar, whispering a prayer. He had chosen a song that no one expected, a stripped-down acoustic version of Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. When he told the producers, they were unsure if it would work, but Simon encouraged him, saying, "If you're going to take a risk, take it with your heart." Miguel spent days perfecting every note, rearranging the song into something soulful and emotional. He wanted to show not just his voice but his story, turning a rock anthem into something deeply personal. His mother sat in the front row, holding her hands together, whispering prayers as he walked toward the stage. The lights dimmed, and silence filled the room. Miguel took a deep breath and strummed his guitar softly, the familiar tune transformed into a tender ballad. The first line came out low and vulnerable, and the audience leaned in. As he continued, the lyrics, "Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?" took on a new meaning, reflecting his own journey from a small Filipino town to the world's biggest stage. His voice soared during the chorus, clear and powerful yet filled with emotion. Every note seemed to carry the memory of his father, every word felt like it came straight from his soul. The audience sat frozen, tears glistening in their eyes. Simon didn't blink, he was completely mesmerized. When Miguel reached the final chord, the theater erupted. The sound of cheers and applause filled the air. Simon stood up, clapping slowly, and then, without hesitation, he reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. The room exploded in joy as golden confetti rained down from above. Miguel froze in disbelief, staring up at the shimmering lights falling around him. His mother cried uncontrollably as he dropped to his knees, covering his face with his hands. Simon walked onto the stage, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said softly, "You just made your father proud, and you just made history." The crowd roared in agreement. News of the moment spread instantly across the internet. Within hours, millions of people watched the clip. Headlines called it the most heartfelt golden buzzer in AGT history. Miguel's social media exploded with love and support. Messages came from everywhere: Filipino communities in America, fans from Europe, and people from his home province in the Philippines who watched together on small TVs. Miguel remained humble, thanking everyone and dedicating the moment to his father. "This is for him, and for every kid who dreams," he said. That night, he and his mother sat in their hotel room again, holding hands in silence. Outside the window, the city lights of Los Angeles glittered like stars, and Miguel smiled. He had come so far, and now the dream was becoming real. When the grand finale arrived, the energy was electric. Everyone wanted to see what the young Filipino boy would do next. For the final performance, Miguel decided to return to where it all began. He would sing Hotel California again, but this time, with a full orchestra. It was his tribute to his father and to everyone who believed in him. Dressed in a sleek white suit, he stepped onto the stage with quiet confidence. The lights dimmed to a warm golden hue, and as he began to play the opening chords, the crowd erupted in cheers. His voice had grown deeper, stronger, but still carried that same purity that had touched millions. Behind him, a giant screen displayed photos of his childhood, images of him and his father playing guitar, smiling, laughing, living. Halfway through the song, Miguel's voice cracked slightly, but instead of breaking, it made the moment even more powerful. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he sang the final verse. The orchestra swelled behind him, lifting the song to its emotional peak. When he strummed the last chord, the theater erupted into a standing ovation. Every judge was on their feet, clapping and crying. Simon, visibly moved, said with a trembling voice, "You didn't just sing tonight, Miguel. You made history. You reminded us all why we love music." Miguel smiled through tears, bowing deeply before saying, "This is for my dad, for my mom, and for my country." As the golden confetti fell once more, Miguel stood there in awe, holding his trophy high as the crowd chanted his name. It wasn't just a victory for him, it was a victory for every dreamer who had ever believed that music could change their life. That night, the world witnessed not only the rise of a star but the fulfillment of a promise made by a son to his father, kept under the brightest lights in the world.